Hello, Nathan. BlueSense podcast back after a couple of weeks. I've finally got my voice back after being sick, so glad that we can get this back on track. Topic today that I'd had in the back pocket for the last 2 or 3 weeks since a name we'll get to, I think everyone knows in the AI space that's announced they're starting to do ads, but I think it's sort of as a good frame around the questions we get around when a brand should be thinking about a third or potentially a fourth platform, but it's usually a third platform beyond Meta and Google. And so talking through the incrementality of that platform, more often than not, it's TikTok. We get questions about Reddit. We see brands spending a very small amount of money often on things like Pinterest. And we often do a lot of education with these brands around why, one, we believe that that's not always necessarily incremental in driving a profitable outcome for them. But two, I think is also particularly for certainly anyone in the 7-figure range and even into well into the 8-figure range in Australia is why is that particular activity often not the most efficient way they can deploy their media dollars? So if we start the conversation, really I wanted to ask around why do you think, or what do you think are the main reasons that a brand starts looking beyond Meta and Google, and what are the core questions that we should be asking as to whether that's the right decision at that?
Yeah, definitely. So there's probably a few different reasons. It's not just one. The first, probably most common reason is shiny object syndrome. It's our customers are on TikTok, our customers are on Pinterest. So these platforms, they must do well if the customer's there. But you could translate the exact same thing to YouTube, to TV, to billboards. Does your customer drive down a main road? Okay, then arguably billboards is going to reach them as well. But is that necessarily the next best thing to do with your ad spend? It's arguable. So I think that's really number one, is people see opportunity on these platforms, particularly when the platforms are heavily driven by reps. Like Pinterest is very rep driven. You'll get reps reaching out to you, hey, spend $1,000, we'll give you $1,000, or we'll give you $5,000 to spend on the platform. So they're just giving away free credits to try to get you to spend. We have reps. We have really good reps at TikTok, Meta, everyone, all these platforms. I think they will admit as well, though, that their role is to get you to spend more on the platforms. It's
Sure.
primarily that's their job description. And so they're very helpful, and they provide us with a lot of insights as to what we should do when new ad products rolling out and better support. But at the end of the day, we aren't getting that support unless our clients are spending a lot of money on Meta and TikTok. So I think that's number one. Number two is that CAC starts to rise, so efficiency starts to get worse on the primary channels. And so then they look for secondary or tertiary channels to support. And so our Meta used to drive really good results for us 2 years ago. It's been in slow decline ever since. Therefore, it's probably the Meta platform is getting worse. And so we need to find the next best thing. Because we were on top of Meta when it was the next best thing 6 years ago or 5 years ago. And now it just doesn't seem to be it because performance is falling off. Directly, that's just a skill issue. If your efficiency is declining on Meta or Google, it just means that you're not that good at Meta or Google anymore. It's as straightforward as that. And going and learning another platform usually isn't the key to solve that problem. It's you're applying the wrong solution to the problem. And for context, that normally ends up being a creative or structural issue. So majority of the time, if you used to do well on Meta and now you don't, it's probably a product of the fact that you're structuring the account poorly. So it's overspending on existing customers or non-incremental users, or you just haven't caught up with creative. And so yes, you used to get away with just a dynamic product ad 5 years ago and you could just serve that and print money. Now it's not that easy, particularly with way more saturation on the platform. And then I think the third one is adding new channels feels productive. And so, okay, yes, we're maxing out Meta, we're maxing out Google, or at least within our belief set, we're maxing them out. And so therefore, let's go and add TikTok in there, or let's go and add Pinterest in there. Our team seems to have capacity to want to actually take on those channels and learn them. Our customers seem to be there because we've surveyed them and a lot of them use Pinterest. Therefore, let's go and place ads there. I think obviously the whole reason why we're having this episode is there's massive downside to doing so. Any of those reasons to go into the platforms aren't very good reasons to actually move ahead and execute. There's really only one reason ever as to why you should go into a tertiary channel, and I'm sure we'll get to that.
Yeah, I mean, so I want to touch on a couple of points here. So you mentioned the big one is is skill gap, is like we're seeing eroding efficiency on our core platforms. I think it's important to call out, it's not necessarily that that person is getting worse at their job in like absolute terms. It's like it's an auction at the end of the day. Every ad platform is an auction. And so you're getting diminished returns relative to your market, which is continuing to evolve. If we didn't continue to evolve our product at BlueSense year over year over year, we would not be growing the way that we are. There's a reason Apple is not still selling an iPhone 10 in 2026. They have a better product now, because if they didn't, everyone would be buying a Samsung. Um, and so I think like that's the really important thing, is like if you're not continually evolving on all of those core platforms where you're spending 80, 90, theoretically 100% of your media budget for most brands should be on those sort of core platforms. And that's where you're going to see that eroding efficiency. In terms of then when we start looking, the other point there was like, so we have these platforms that are very rep driven. I think it's worth calling out that like all of these platforms are also very heavily invested in you spending more money on their platforms. This is why Meta and Google are trillion-dollar businesses. And that's, they're just able to do it more effectively through things like inflated attributed ROAS. And that's why we look at incrementality outside of those platforms and contribution profit as a sort of North Star metric. How do we then, how does incrementality get more complicated? And what are the things that we need to be solving for when we start to diversify that channel mix more?
One of the big disadvantages of diversifying the media mix is that measurement becomes more complex. So, and that arguably is enough of a disadvantage for 99% of people watching this to not diversify channel mix. Because the second you start to go into some tertiary channels like Snapchat, like TikTok, like Pinterest, let's say you go into all of them. It's like, okay, we'll throw $2,000 at each one. And then we'll also go into some out of home too. Then all of a sudden revenue goes up. Let's say revenue goes up 20%. What caused it? And you don't know. And so you just keep spending on all of them. And then that's where you end up with like large retailers or large 9-figure, even 10-figure businesses where they're spending across like 30 channels at once, all with pretty big budgets. And you're like, how do we get to this point? And the way that they got to that point was they added a couple channels on and they were like, I think it's doing something. We grew this year. And then they just keep adding stuff on. And then there's no accountability or test run throughout that period to be able to actually validate channel performance. And so you end up in a position where you're just very confused. And that's the common conversation that we have anytime we are having exploratory calls or meeting 8 and 9-figure founders for the first time. It's pretty much always the exact same conversation we have every single time, which is that, okay, why aren't you spending more on Facebook? Well, because we don't actually think Facebook is growing the business. Why don't you think that? Well, because we just don't trust it. Okay, cool. So the limitation in growth right now is your inability to measure impact of your media spend across these channels. And probably one of the reasons why that's so hard is because you're spending on 7 different channels. And so that's why we move to more complex measurement systems as we move up in revenue threshold with clients, because it is simply required as the media mix gets more complicated. And so when you're spending on 3-4 channels, you do need to start to do stuff like holdout tests or like run even just conversion lift experiments within platform to be able to start to triangulate what's actually occurring. Because with so many platforms all firing on all cylinders, attribution is terrible. Indexing against MER or just top line revenue is terrible because none of them have enough contribution to really like push the numbers around. So if you're only spending a little bit on TikTok, if you cut TikTok, like just not enough large percentage of spend for you to even really feel it in the top line numbers and for you to be able to pass out that variance in just day-to-day fluctuations. And so you need to be taking, like there's an entire strategy in itself if you're going to go and launch onto another channel to be able to actually validate its performance.
I mean, I see Pinterest as sort of the culprit for that all the time, right? Where we meet a brand that's doing anywhere from 500,000 to a couple $1 million a month in top line revenue. And they're spending usually up to 100, maybe more than $100,000 a month on Meta in Australia for that sort of scale. And then they're spending $1,200 a month on Pinterest and it's claiming all of this, attributed revenue. And it's just like, well, where is the read on that? It's like, it's less than 1% of your media allocation. what are we doing here? How is that going to show up in the data? I think the platform to sort of talk about there then is TikTok. I would say anecdotally, in my experience at our business, it is the platform that we see really continuously showing up as the third platform. And certainly the one that we're seeing the most consistent incremental returns, aside from maybe some really specific B2B cases where they have a small allocation on Microsoft or something like that. Um, what then are the core questions, or what are the core challenges in terms of introducing TikTok? In many ways, it's like Meta, but in many ways, it's very different. Um, and then what are the things that brands should be thinking about and ensuring they have in place outside of maybe just the measurement system, which we've spoken about, to ensure that that is going to be a successful decision?
Yeah. So the framework for deciding whether to go into TikTok or not is not, are our customers on TikTok? Because the answer is like everyone's customers are on TikTok, right? And so we already addressed that at the start. Whether they're on the platform or not is not a decision-making framework for whether you should spend on the platform. The decision-making framework is, if we got another $10,000 in budget next month on top of what we currently already spend, would we get the best ROI spending this on Google, Meta, or TikTok? And the answer, majority of the time, is not TikTok. You can often just put more spend into Meta and do more of what you're currently doing and see much greater returns. There's also a greater ROI once you take into consideration operating expenses. Every time you go
Hmm.
into a new channel like TikTok, it often requires slightly different creative. So yes, you can use a lot of the stuff you're using on Meta for sure, and we do that all the time. But you also, if you really want TikTok to do well, you want some TikTok specific related content, and that's going to have a cost associated with it. Also, are you managing this in-house or external? Because if it's external, whoever's managing it should be billing you for it. Because managing an entire another platform is not just like, it doesn't take zero time. There is a large time component associated to now, and uploading ads in TikTok is an absolute nightmare compared to Facebook as well. And so just the ad uploads in itself, we're talking about a massive increase in workload. Okay, you don't push that external. If it's in-house, someone's doing it anyway. So someone's got to do all this extra work. And for a very small amount of spend, the profit math starts to fall apart. Where it starts to become worth it is when you start to push up to higher ad spends. And so if you're spending $250,000 a month on Meta in Australia, even like 180K a month, I'd actually start to consider TikTok as a viable channel for you, because you're starting to approach the ceiling. Now, you might not be at the ceiling. You might be able to spend a lot more, but the incremental ROI from spending 250 to 300 might not be as good as taking TikTok from 0 to 10. And so we may as well go and
Hmm.
take TikTok from 0 to 10 or 0 to 20. It just then needs to be done in a way that's measurable, because TikTok sits, from our experimentation and our understanding of the platform, a little bit higher funnel. And so time to purchase through TikTok, people would think it'd be more quick, because TikTok shop is really like low AOV, high impulse purchasing. But if you're not low AOV and high impulse purchasing and you're not running TikTok shop, it ends up actually having more of a delayed effect. And so you serve people TikTok ads, and then 7, 14, 20 days later, they end up purchasing. And a similar kind of effect to out of home or TV, whereas Meta generally can drive a purchase faster. Now, is that due to the way that people are actually using and interacting with the platform, or is that just a product of Meta having a better advertising tool? I don't know. People could argue all day about it. Like, people can say, oh, when they're on TikTok, they're in this kind of mindset, therefore they're not going to purchase. But I think it really just comes down to Meta's a better platform for serving ads. And so Meta just
Mm.
does a better job of being able to get people to make faster purchasing decisions. And TikTok doesn't, just like TV doesn't. Like, the actual ad serving mechanism just isn't as good. So you go.
I was going to say, there's the other one that's just sort of a quick plug for like how your agency should be operating in that model, is the other component that changes dramatically when you're at that 250, 300 plus K sort of range, is the labor conversation is a dramatically smaller percentage of your overall marketing expenditure, right? Like an extra couple $1,000 in your agency fees to manage that third channel and deploy those creative assets on a different area is substantially different to that, 40, 50, 60K delta in media buy. The common question there is, if you're still in 2026 on an agency retainer model that's driven by percentage of ad spend, I'd probably be advocating for rethinking that because it's not directly tied to the actual work involved and the value delivered by that partner. But certainly, like, that also becomes a much easier part of the conversation at that sort of scale.
Yeah, I'll make a quick comment on that because I think we should do a pod around agency-based pricing and vetting agencies. But the reason why I don't like percentage of ad spend is because someone always loses.
Yeah.
And same as percentage of performance, because people go, oh, well, okay, don't do percentage of ad spend, do percentage of performance. On upside, you get a cut. And it's like, yeah, but someone always loses because either the agency gets significantly underpaid for the labor cost being delivered, right? Or the agency gets significantly overpaid comparative to the labor cost actually delivered. And so
Mm.
why don't we just price based on the value and labor cost being driven? Like, why does someone always have to lose? And like, so that's why I don't like the percentage of ad spend model. It's because someone will always lose in that model. And you should ask yourself right now, if you're on that model, are you winning or losing? Now, you might be winning and the agencies can fleece by you. Also, probably not a good idea because, like, do you want to work with someone and underpay them and fleece them? Like, probably not. They're probably not going to prioritize you that much because they're going to go, well, this isn't profitable for us. Like, let's not even put effort here. These guys are way more profitable. I'd rather catch up with these guys and put effort into their account. And then vice versa. Do you want to substantially overpay respective to the actual work being done? Also, not a great feeling.
Yeah. No, I think that's definitely worth a follow-up conversation because there's a lot there that we've seen, that I've seen in the course of my career, that's sort of lots of different models and that kind of thing. And again, I sort of always come back to, like, what is the actual value being delivered should be the core question. And the metaphor I think that's useful, and it's not a metaphor, the example, from following a lot of like sports content in North America, where they have a substantially different sort of free agency contract signing model than we'd see in Australia, is always talking about, like, the hallmark of a great negotiation is where both parties end up feeling like almost like they've lost a little bit, like they haven't lost, but like the client feels a little bit like, oh, this is a bit more money than we thought we were going to pay. And the agency feels like, they're like, damn, we're working really hard for this particular retainer. It's usually, in my opinion, the hallmark of, like, that's like really good value for both parties. Then we go beyond TikTok. We start looking at other channels that we get asked about. I would say the most common one is Pinterest. I think that's largely down to just the visibility of their reps in this market. Recently, actually, and I'm surprised it's only been recently, but in the last 6 weeks, I've had 3 or 4 different brands ask me about Reddit. This became a really big talking point online a couple of years ago when Reddit IPO'd. Reddit famously is, like, consistently for over 10 years now, one of the top 10 most trafficked websites in the world, like just a huge amount of attention. And when they IPO'd at, like, frankly, a pretty underwhelming sort of share performance because they're just doing a terrible job of monetizing that traffic, which points to it's just not a very effective ad platform. I've also held the opinion for a long time that Pinterest, as sort of the worst offender, in my opinion, on giving away ad credits, is like the biggest tell that it's just directly inflationary to the real money that you spend there. I think if you look at the
Yeah.
way, like, a platform like Meta gives away ad credit, it's usually around a new testing feature that they're rolling out. It's like, hey, we'll give you this credit, but it's specifically to go and run this new product on our platform that's in beta. That to me makes sense. It's like, okay, we'll give you the ad budget to go and test this new tool, and then we win because we find out it's an effective tool, or no, it's not. It still needs a little bit of tweaking. What is again, like, let's go to, like, decision making. Usually for Pinterest, it's like, oh, well, I see this crazy high attributed rev because it's all view through attribution and very, very minimal spend. What are the core questions we should be asking about that Pinterest, Reddit, Snapchat, whatever it might be?
Yeah, I think that Reddit is actually probably worse than Pinterest right now. You can just go to the Reddit
Mm.
Facebook ad library and look at all the ads they're running because I get Reddit ads all the time, and it's like they're just giving away
Advertising
money.
to
They're like,
advertise on Reddit. Yeah.
yeah, correct. They're
Yeah.
advertising to advertise on Reddit, which also goes to show, like, okay, they're using Meta. It's probably a good platform. It's probably a better platform than Reddit to advertise their own ads. But yeah, the inflationary pressure of just giving away credits, I don't think people understand that either. It's like the Fed just printing money. It's like, okay, cool, but your existing money is devaluing in real time. And so it it's actually like it makes no sense. Thinking through these platforms, like the question is, can you get Reddit ads profitable? Probably. Is it worth the time and effort? Probably not for most people. And it's the same thing for Pinterest as well. The issue with Pinterest, and I imagine it's going to be the exact same issue with Reddit, although I haven't personally run Reddit ads, is that you get massive view through attribution because on Pinterest, you're looking at like 9 tiles at once. And if one of those tiles
Mm.
is an ad being served by you, and then you convert at some point in the future, they will claim the credit for that purchase. And so attribution becomes very meaningless on these tertiary channels because there's just so much retargeting going on. And so you want to do it through some kind of experiment design. Like a really easy rudimentary example of this is that if you're going to go and spend on Pinterest and you're thinking, okay, let's budget for 2K a month and let's test it for 6 months, I would instead argue take that entire budget and spend it in 30 days. Don't spend it over 6 months. Like, let's just speed
Mm.
this test up. And then let's select a particular region to run the test as well. So if it's in Australia, choose a state. Maybe you choose Queensland. And rather than spending 2K across the whole of Australia over 6 months and then ending up in a position where you have no clue what actually happened and whether that was worth it, and so your team just goes, oh, we'll just continue spending there. Instead, you're like, no, we dropped 20K into Pinterest in Queensland, and Queensland sales did nothing. Okay. Probably won't do that again. Maybe we'll retest in a year's time or 2 years' time, but at least we've run the experiment. We've got a conclusion. We can move on. Where most people fail in performance marketing in e-commerce is that they just run a million tests and they never get outcomes. And so it feels like you're constantly doing stuff. It's like, oh yeah, we've tested Pinterest, we've tested TikTok. Okay, how did that actually go? Is it a profitable channel? What's the incremental ROI? We don't. The rep said it's doing well. It's like wasn't a test that was designed well, and there's no clear outcome, and therefore that's the reason why you're spending on all these channels with a low ROI.
I mean, I remember getting a pitch from a Pinterest rep, like I want to say 5 years ago now, and it was a compelling pitch. It was they were positioning it as the only platform in Australia that operates to a certain extent like a both social platform and a search-driven platform. And so it's they were sort of positioning it as the best of both Google and Meta because you have psychographic data like a social platform with creative assets, and they are also primarily going to that platform to use a search experience um, that can be then keyword driven or search intent driven and so on. I'm like, that's a really compelling pitch. It's a great idea. Does it bear out in the incrementality? Does it bear out in like just anecdotally the number of people I actually know that use Pinterest day to day relative to platforms like Meta and Google? No. Um, I think if you're looking at that sort of frame, the one that sort of comes to mind to me now is actually YouTube, because YouTube is arguably like a top 5 search engine in the world now. You have that sort of level of search intent, and it's also a top 5 social platform. And we've talked a lot about in the past with clients that start looking at sort of where's their next $10,000 going to be spent on Google. And you've talked a lot in content about, okay, well, YouTube's actually a really effective part of that. But again, the measurement on it's kind of crappy. And so you need to be looking outside of that ecosystem of like, how do we actually measure that and test the effectiveness of that? Like, I actually didn't have that on my notes for today, but now that I think about it, like, is YouTube that sort of third channel actually within their current channels that they should be thinking about?
Yes, I'll answer that in a sec. I'll just throw a story in, which is that back in 2019, I was sold Pinterest by a Pinterest rep as well when I was drop shipping, and I had like 7 different stores on the go. And what I
Yeah.
did, smart 2019 version of myself, I made a separate store entirely for a particular product that was doing well. And I ran that on Pinterest ads because I was like, I don't want to deal with any of this attribution. Let me just clone the entire business and run a second version of this business where I'm only using Pinterest ads. And then my existing business stays on Google and Meta. Obviously not applicable for most people, but that was one of the advantages back in the day of just drop shipping. You could just clone stores and keep going. And Pinterest, I could never get it profitable, but I did make sales. Like I think I did like $30,000-$40,000 in revenue through Pinterest ads. And so it's not to say that Pinterest can't drive revenue. It's not to say that people won't click and purchase and it's not a viable sales channel. It is. It, like for sure is. I did a bunch of sales through Pinterest, but it's just not as good as Meta and Google. And so why would you go for the worst performing platform when you can just go to a better platform, be much more profitable, and then you can move to Pinterest down the line if you want, if you need to add incremental dollars because you've maxed out these primary platforms. On YouTube, two disadvantages of YouTube is measurement's pretty bad because a lot of placements happen on TV and obviously people don't click on the TV. And then people also usually want to watch their YouTube videos, so they don't click on the ad, but it stays top of mind. And so what ends up happening is you have an omni-channel effect where those sales appear elsewhere. Number two is from our experience, and this I could be wrong, but this is my subjective experience, is that you need a lot of budget on YouTube. If you just go into YouTube with a couple $1,000s a month, or even like $5,000 to $10,000 a month, it's just never worked anytime I've ever tried it on any client and myself as well. But anytime we've gone in with 15, 20K a month budgets, it's almost always worked, almost every time. And so I think there is really a minimum budget requirement to get YouTube to work. And I think it's a function of the fact that their ad placing platform just isn't as good as Meta. You can go to Meta and you can throw out $50 a day in budget and the thing will find customers. Like it's just so good. But on YouTube, I think you really need to push data through that campaign, actually start getting some conversion so it knows who to actually go after. And then the thing will start humming and working. And so it also goes to the point of don't try YouTube until you're already at big budgets because you need to commit a lot of budget to actually see it work. And then don't go to YouTube until you're very good at measurement systems and like geo holdouts, etc., because that's the only way to get a valid ROI read too. And so TLDR, only even touch YouTube once you're like a $20 million business.
I mean, that's sort of an interesting comment you say there about like that psychographic of like the people that are there on that platform. They're not necessarily like my lived experience. So I'm not clicking on the ad. I'm looking for the skip button as quickly as possible, right? But those messages, products, whatever will stay top of mind. I might go and Google them. We'll look up their social later. You look at a business that has a lot of YouTube attention. So my first question is, because I don't actually know I'm curious what your answer is. I think I know the answer based on what you just had to say. You take Blue Sense Digital as our go-to-market plan. If I was to correlate us to a D2C brand, I would say we spend on advertising like a small to mid 7-figure brand. We don't need to spend nearly as much as a big D2C because we have a very, very niche total addressable market in terms of the e-com managers, finance managers, and so on that we're looking to reach. We also have a YouTube channel that drives a huge amount of engagement in a very niche market. So we have a lot of latent attention on that platform. Do we spend any money there in our advertising, or is it all through conventional YouTube and Meta?
It's all through Meta. And then once again, I think YouTube would crush for us. I think we could crush YouTube ads, but will it crush more than just spending it on Meta? I don't think so, up to a certain point. And then number two is we have to spend at least 20K a month for YouTube to be valid and actually work. And once again, it's like, do I want to go and spend 20K more a month to get a second channel to work? Or can I just put an extra 10K a month into Meta and guarantee results? And so like we internally go through the exact same thought process as what D2C and retailers should be thinking. Like they're the trade-offs. And often 90% of the time it's like, okay, just do more of the primary channel.
And then the sort of closing topic here that was the impetus for wanting to have this conversation has it been 2-3 weeks now? OpenAI announced that they'll be starting to trial ads. I think it went live on the 6th of Feb for free users in the US market. Anecdotally, I think that's a little bit earlier than I was expecting. I figured like by the end of 26, we'd definitely be hearing about something, because if you look at their valuation relative to the amount of revenue that they're driving through pro users, it just doesn't bear out. They need to monetize some other way, and ads is going to be the way they do that eventually. But I do think it's going to drive this enormous influx of like LinkedIn influencers and brand owners going, ChatGPT ads is the future. I've got to be on ChatGPT. Again, like then I've seen sort of 2 stories actually since then. Taylor Holiday called out something on, I think it was a Verge article, where OpenAI was saying they were running $60 CPMs and no analytics, which is a crazy value proposition. And then I saw another article in Adweek just in the last 24 or 48 hours, I think, where they said sort of your initial investment, you're looking at 200,000 US dollars to get into the platform. Now, that's obviously
Mhm.
like a beta phase. They're not going to be onboarding every advertiser and opening up the market completely. But then I go to this whole idea, and we saw this in SEO 2 years ago, really over the last 2 years to 18 months kind of thing, where visibility in LLM started becoming this huge talking point. I go back to like, what are those core principles that we need to be reminding ourselves consistently when there's like ChatGPT ads is the prime example of shiny objects.
Yeah, it's just everything that we've spoken about already, which is your next best dollar spent on ChatGPT ads? Is this just shiny object syndrome? Like, I can see the temptation, right? Because everyone always wants to be there for the next best thing. And there is always arbitrage being first mover if it is the correct first mover advantage. Like if you're moving into the right thing at the right time. Like if you were
Mm,
early in on Facebook ads, well done. Um, so calling these things is very hard, but I think that discipline on the primary channels always still yields consistent results over a long enough time period. Like it's really just is your next best dollar spent there. In terms of how GPT's gone to market, it's a bit of a terrible go to market strategy, not having tracking or analytics or pixels or anything like that's kind of wild. And CPMs being so ridiculously high. But in terms of gatekeeping to very large minimum spends, pretty normal for a new ad platform launch. Like this is what AppLovin did as well. You could only get in
mhm.
and you'd have a minimum spend of theirs was a lot lower. I think it was like 50,000 or 20,000. Uh, and then they will eventually make it public, and then anyone can serve ads on the platform. Once again, do I think that's a very convincing value proposition for most people to go in with 200K spend on ChatGPT ads with no analytics and $60 CPMs? Like, I don't know. You're probably way better off spending $200,000 on just making organic content at the end of the day. Like, I think
Mm.
organic's a better channel.
And bears out in our own go to market at the moment, right? Like I think that to me, the only brands that like it makes sense to go and drop 200,000 plus on a channel that is highly theoretical because there's no measurement, expensive CPM. It's sort of like to use a topical point would be like, can you afford to go and drop $30 million on a Super Bowl ad? Okay, cool. A ChatGPT experiment might be worthwhile, but you're talking, there's no D2C brand in the world, in my opinion, that fits that criteria, right? You're talking like automotive brands, retail brands, FMCG brands that are on, 100,000 grocery store shelves around the world. Sure, is there some thought process in that level of attention, a Nike, whatever it might be. But if you're in D2C, no, keep it simple. Like stick to those sort of core platforms.
Agreed.
All right. I think that about wraps us up, Nathan. Any final comments?
No, all good. I think it's good, which is just this your next best dollar spent on Meta and Google or another platform. And for most people, it's not another platform. And so don't go and waste your time and waste your spend.
We'll leave it there. If you are spending money on Pinterest, if you're spending more money on TikTok, obviously all our links will be in the description below this content. We would love to take a look at it for you and give you a second opinion. Cheers, Nathan.
Thank you.